Summary of this is How It Always Is by Laurie Frankel. Roosevelt Walsh Adams is the first son of Penn and Rosie, and they have decided to hyphenate his name in order to prevent him from seeming too presidential. After Ben come the twins, Rigel and Orion, because Penn and Rosie thought they would have just one more. Now, Rosie is a doctor and a woman of science, but she is rearranging her bedroom furniture in the middle of the afternoon because the Talmud says that girls are born in the afternoon and in beds that face east to west. That afternoon, Rosie gets pregnant with Claude. Since this is her fourth pregnancy and fifth kid, people keep asking her if she is Catholic and how birth control works. After 9 months, Rosie gives birth, which she does like a pro by this point. As soon as Penn tells her to breathe, she knows it's time to push. She then hears the doctor yell, "It's a boy." Penn is an only child. When he told Rosie this for the first time, she looked at him with sadness, as if he were going to die. Penn is a writer, and Rosie met him through a woman in his MFA program. Pony, Rosie's sister, died of cancer when the two were young. Penn heard this on their first date. Penn had the realization that he would have a daughter named Poppy one day after dropping off Rosie that night. Penn read in the hospital waiting room while Rosie was in residency. During Rosie's breaks, he would tell her stories about Grunwald, a night he made up. Penn and Rosie fell in love over Grunwald stories. Now, before bed, he reads Grunwald stories to their 5 kids every night. The busiest and hardest time of the day is right before bed, and Penn is usually on her own because Rosie is working at the hospital. If Claude, who is 5 years old now, grows up, he wants to be a girl scientist. He likes science and dinosaurs. For Ben's birthday, Claude and his brothers put on a play. Claude is the princess and won't take off his dress. He even wants to wear the dress to preschool, so Rosie and Penn have to come up with really good reasons not to let him. With the fairy dress on, Claude comes down for breakfast on the first day of school. Claude has to change into shorts and a t-shirt because Penn accidentally spills down the front of the dress, but Claude still wants to use one of his grandmother Camry's patent leather bags as a lunch tote. Rosie finds out after school that she can't bring peanut butter sandwiches to school and that boys with bags are a distraction. Everyone knows the bag is a lunch tote because Claude brings his lunch to work every day in it. A dress is still something he wears every day, but only after school. Penn and Rosie tell Claude that he can wear a dress to school if he wants to, but Claude says no. He doesn't want the other kids to make fun of him because Miss Appleton, his teacher, already thinks he is weird. For Claude, putting on his real clothes when he gets home from school is enough. Penn and Rosie set up a time to talk about Claude at school near the end of fall. There are a lot of things Penn and Rosie want him to do to make the change as smooth as possible. The teacher in charge, Dwight Harmon, is understanding. He has worked with transgender students and kids with special needs before, but Victoria Revels, who works for the school district, is mostly worried about names and which bathroom Claude will use. If he doesn't change his name, she says, they won't worry about gender. From now on, though, Claude needs to use the bathroom in the nurse's office. Penn goes to school with Claude on the first day that he wears a dress. He sits quietly in the back of the classroom just in case. But the kids don't seem to care much about Claude's clothes. They only ask him a few questions. The bigger kids, on the other hand, are a different story, and as time goes on, Claude finds the field more and more unpleasant. Claude starts to eat lunch in the bathroom to get away from the bigger kids, but the nurse finds him and tells him to stop. After that, Claude starts using the boys' bathroom, but Miss Appleton quickly finds him there too. The nurse tells him he needs to use the bathroom. She tells him that the boys' bathroom is only for little boys. Claude needs to use the nurse's bathroom if he wants to put on a dress. Then Claude tells Miss Appleton that he should just use the girls' bathroom. Miss Appleton says, "But you're not a little girl." That night, Victoria Revels calls Penn and tells him that Claude needs to choose whether he is a boy or a girl. According to Ms. Revels, Claude is being disruptive if he just wants to wear a dress. If he has gender confusion, that is another matter. She also tells him that he needs to use the nurse's bathroom right now. Claude tells Rosie and Penn that he has changed his name to Poppy later that night. Rosie and Penn think it's perfect. Poppy is dropped off at her friend Nikki's house one day by Rosie. But Poppy calls Rosie right away, crying, and tells her to come get her. Rosie calls Penn, who is nearby, and then runs to Nikki's house. When she gets there, Penn is just pulling up. As they get out of the car, Poppy calls out and starts crying. Nikki's dad, Nick, knocks on the door and calls Poppy a faggot. He tells her she can never be near his son again. Nick takes off his shirt to show that he has a gun hidden in his pants. Cindy, Nikki's mother, comes up and pushes him back inside. Later, Cindy texts Rosie to say she's sorry, but she doesn't stop to answer. In the evening, while Rosie is working in the emergency room, an ambulance arrives with Jane Doe, a transgender woman who was nearly killed by a group of fraternity boys at the nearby college. Rosie has to choose between Nick Sr. and Jane Doe. She knows she has to move Poppy to a better, more accepting place, and she lands on Seattle. Though it's a city, there are still parks, outdoor walks, and lots of hospitals to choose from. That being said, the city is more open and accepting of people who are different, which is the most important thing about it. Rosie gets a job at a private family practice in Seattle, and the couple purchases a home close to the city. Frank and Marjorie, Rosie's new neighbors, stop by to say hello on her first day living alone in the house. Frank and Marjorie have two girls named Aggie and Cayenne. When Marjorie asks Rosie about her kids, she tells her the whole story of Poppy in one word. Marjorie tells Rosie that she and Frank are not going to tell their kids the truth about Poppy at a barbecue at their house the next day. For Aggie to treat Poppy like a girl, she will be in Poppy's class at school. Frank and Marjorie don't think it makes sense to mess things up by telling Aggie the truth. That sounds like the best idea to Rosie and Penn, so they decide not to tell anyone that Poppy is transgender. Poppy and Aggie become very close, just like Kim and Natalie. They can't be apart. Poppy and Aggie's bedroom windows are right next to each other, and they say they will always be best friends and rival princesses in neighboring castles. The secret about Poppy stays a family secret for many years, until Poppy is 10 years old. Pops calls Rosie at work one afternoon. "Mom." She tells them, they know. Everyone understands. When a boy named Jake Irving said he heard Poppy has a giant dick, things started to go badly. By the afternoon, everyone at school was talking about Poppy. She left school and went home right away. Pop says she's not going back to school. Penn and Rosie go to Poppy's room that night to see how she's doing and find her dressed like Claude with no hair on her head. Poppy won't leave his room and wants to be called Claude. Rosie stays with him for 3 days, but on the 4th day, she goes to her office and the owner of the practice, Howie, tells her she needs to do more work if she wants to keep working there. He also wants her to go to Thailand and open a clinic for refugees. Penn is looking into sex transition surgery and vaginoplasty later that night when Rosie gets home. He says he isn't pushing for surgery right now, but if Poppy chooses she wants it in the future, he wants to learn more about it. Rosie tells him that Poppy is 10 years old, and he now only wants to be called Claude. That night, Rosie goes to bed not sure what to think about anything. She can't fall asleep, so she wakes up near dawn and texts Howie. As long as Poppy, now known as Claude, can go with her, she will go to Thailand and set up the clinic. This makes Claude shocked when he and Rosie get to Bangkok and see how many people look just like him. Charles can tell that the women are transgender because of the way their hands and feet are shaped. The women have long hair and wear clothes. Rosie works at the clinic every day, and Claude teaches English to kids at school by telling them Grumwald stories. Because Claude has cut his head, the kids think he is a monk. But Claude isn't sure if they think he is a boy or a girl. Claude sees the kids as a blind test. If they see him as a girl, he is a girl, but if they see him as a boy, he is a boy. Penn says what Claude sees in himself is what matters. Claude says, "I see nothing." During the day, a woman named Kay helps Rosie at the clinic. Kay is the mechanic, nurse, physical therapist, social worker, and security guard, and Rosie can't help but notice that Kay is transgender. Kay says it's called Kathoey, and in Thailand, Kathoey is not seen as a bad thing. We're all Buddhist, Kay says. It's what we do. Is living. Is just one more way to be. All over Thailand, there are images of Buddha. Claude sees that they all look very girly. A person from the area named Nok tells him that Buddha is portrayed as more feminine because it makes him look more calm and gentle. Nok says that Buddha lived in many bodies before he became enlightened. In Buddhism, you don't own anything, not even your body. Claude likes this idea right away. He shaved his head, got enlightened, and then ended up looking like a girl. This is who Buddha is. From that point on, Claude is a Buddhist because Buddha knows that bodies don't matter. Pen texts Rosie late that night and tells her to go home. The next day, she finally calls him and he tells her that his book, The Adventures of Grumwald and Princess Stephanie, has sold and that she needs to come home to party with him. Somebody puts a curse on Grumwald in Pen's new story. He has to live as a knight during the day and as Princess Stephanie at night. He says that other people need to read Poppy's story so they can understand it. Poppy has finally decided to go back to school, so Rosie does go home with her. Poppy even goes to the school's Valentine's Day dance and dances with Jake Irving, who says sorry for being so mean to her. Rosie says that their story does have a happy finish, but Pen says they are still a long way from it.
About an author. Lori Frankel used to teach writing, literature, and gender studies at a college before 2011. After her first book, The Atlas of Love, came out and was a finalist for the Pacific Northwest Book Award, she started writing full-time. Goodbye for Now, Frankel's second book, came out in 2012. Goodbye for Now won the 2013 Endeavor Award, which is given every year to the best science fiction work from a writer in the Pacific Northwest. It was also chosen as an editor's choice by the New York Times. This Is How It Always Is, Frankel's third book, came out in 2017 and got good reviews from both readers and critics. There are more than 20 different versions of the book, and it won the Washington State Book Award in 2018. People magazine, the Chicago Public Library, and Amazon all named This Is How It Always Is a best book of the year. It was a New York Times big hit. Frankel has also written a number of pieces, such as Raising a Transgender Child in the Age of Trump and We Adopted by Choice Not Necessity. Her husband and daughter live with her in Seattle.
Hope we summarized it fully and you liked it. Please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel so that we are motivated to create more videos.